You're listening to the No Labels, No Limits podcast with best-selling author Sarah Box, where you get the inside scoop on the steps action takers and decision makers take to align their purpose to their principles and achieve their goals in business and life. And now, without further ado, please welcome your commanding coach with plenty of chutzpah and heart, Sarah Box.
This week we're doing something a little different. I want to ask you, you're in the middle of a random conversation with someone and you realize you wish there were more people in the room with you, either because it's been a familiar topic that everybody you're hanging out with is talking about, or it covers questions you have and you just want to get everybody on the same page, or at least get a sense of what's happening? Well, that's what happened yesterday when friend and colleague Ken Fay and I hopped on a call to work out a lot of the behind the scenes for our upcoming heart-centered storytelling workshop. And as we were talking about just random things related to stories and the work he's been doing lately out of state, and then some of the stuff I've got going on in the background, I realized, and I just said, I think we should record this because we're going to be answering some questions that we know people have about our workshops, what working with Ken is like, those types of things. So we thought we'd bring this short little off-the-top podcast to you this week. We hope you find it interesting. And by the way, if you do, go to the show notes. We'd love to have you in the workshop. It's going to be very powerful. So do that. Hop on. Let us know what you think. So I don't want to feel too scripted with this, Ken, but I'm really thinking about, as we've started to promote the heart-centered storytelling workshop, we've got the three kind of quote-unquote packages. We've got the 90-minute where we're going to get into like parts of the technical of how to do the work, right? You're going to talk about scriptment, but more importantly, it's important to know the why, and we're going to talk about that. But before we even talk too much around that, I was thinking over the weekend just about how the different personality types, right? Thinking about the Enneagram, thinking about all my clients, how they show up. And I think about like, okay, what if I was given the job of either overseeing or creating or something, but doing a video that goes out to our donors and our volunteer base or community at large, right? Because we want them engaged with us. First of all, we know this is not happy economic times. The forecast heading into next year isn't bright and sunny. And so folks, the nonprofit world is maybe having impacts to their funding cycles. And yes, there are federal dollars coming down, but not all nonprofits are getting those equally. So, one of the powerful ways of getting to know people are through video. As uncomfortable as it, I remember, man, it took me forever to be willing to put a video anywhere. I'm like going, no thanks, not doing it, can't do it, won't do it. Hello, here we are. So, and I know that you were shooting video just a week and a half ago with a nonprofit, a faith-based organization in Houston. So I'm curious if you were to kind of bring the work you and I have done together, your most recent kind of interactions with folks around video. Tell me what, if I were signing up, what I'm going to get out of like just 90 minutes of understanding my why, where will I be different?
Great. And this is the journey of being a storyteller. So we talk about heart-centered storytelling. Now that is a big word, and that encompasses a lot of things, and people have a lot of ways of looking at it. Heart-centered storytelling, though, we're going to break that down into your heart story. If you can connect your heart story to your audience's heart, then that's the storytelling. That's heart-centered storytelling, right? So I think we need to just break it out enough to define your why, define where you're at in your storytelling right now. And maybe you're not doing any storytelling. Maybe you're just, you're just leaning on things you've always leaned on, or you're just using the same kind of story that you've always told. And now you're an echo of your own voice, and a copy of a copy of a copy is kind of fading, right? So what is your voice today? And you pointed it out, Sarah, the economic times are tough. The world's a different place right now. Things are spinning around us. that message, you could repackage messages, but you got to give them a little bit of a polish, and you got to stand them upright and send them back out into the world again. But by doing that, you kind of run them through your own heart filter. And as a storyteller, you're going to take that story and you're going to be able to translate that into something that you can put out there that will be embraced by your audience. And that's going to be the differentiator. How many times have we heard the same thing over and over again about give here, donate here, give here, donate there? There are 1,000 billion great causes out there. All of them are good. All of them are good. Your cause, your story, why did you get into this in the first place? I mean, we're going to dig into that a little bit. Why are you even doing this? Like, is it just your job? Because I don't think that's our audience. It's not just their job. They believe it, they love it, they know it, and they know it makes a difference. And so what I'd like to do is just kind of prop them up, show them who they are in their heart, that now they can translate that into something that's going to make a difference in their audience.
You know what I've seen, Ken, is, from having been a director in nonprofit, you can get very mechanized. So I think about, like you said, a copy of a copy of a copy and grant writing, right? Cut and paste, cut and paste. And here's our big community need. Here's the data. And for me, as both a writer of a grant, but also as someone who's reviewed a fair share of grants, there's a couple of things that stand out for me. People have no trouble telling you everything that's wrong. But when they get to telling you what's right, what they can do about it, there's a huge gap. It's like, well, what you're saying you're going to change. First of all, you're on your own, you're tiny. We can't see you, we the funders can't see that you can make that leap, right? We don't know you. We don't know who you are, your capabilities. We don't know your heart. Now, I'm going to tell you, these are federal grants. They're not worried about all that. They are worrying about the succinct stuff. But your community, right, wants to know you. If I'm walking into a nonprofit organization, I want to know the people there. I want to know who they are, their heart, how they show up. So is that kind of what you're getting at, Ken?
Oh, absolutely. To give money or time or resources is all treasure and talent that people can give, time, money, resources, right? Nonprofits need all of that. And just any volunteer organization needs that to run proper, But if you know who the people are in your organization, if you know what kind of makes them tick, why they're so passionate about what they do, and how that passion translates into what they do, then that's something that an audience person can go, oh, I can see that, I can align with that, or that person reminds me of me, or reminds me of my daughter or son or my mom or my dad or whatever. There's a connecting thing here. We're all human. We all share the human experience. And the narrative, the strongest narrative on the planet is the narrative to go home and have a safe, happy home. It's the thread through everything, right? And a nonprofit, when you're working in the streets with the homeless, or you're working with groups that are just marginalized, or you're working with people that are just hungry, they're crying out. How are you answering that call as a nonprofit and telling their story? And how are you respecting that and delivering that to an audience that has no idea that this is happening in their backyard? That's the connecting piece. And to do that, you have to dive through a little bit of your psychology of where you're at to translate that message so that it's coming from you. I could write 1,000 scripts for people and they could just read it. Do they believe it? That this story has to come from you. And that's what we're going to dig into, is what is your story? What is it you're trying to say? And I just want to saddle up next to you and just say, and here's a few ways you can tell that story. And here's how we can wrestle this down so that you can bring this out and show people who you are, what you do, and why it matters.
But when I think about these clips or the videos people can do, and they can be short or long, right?
Yeah. You can get a ton of information out in 15 seconds. And you could show that one moment. If you think like a filmmaker or a storyteller and you look at the world through the lens, okay, not the lens of a device, but the lens of life, you can translate that into the lens, a technical lens, but you capture these moments, these feelings, these emotions, these things that as you go through your day, you're like, oh man, I was just so blessed to witness that. Like that's a change transformation moment. And that's what we're all trying to do, right? Aren't we just trying to transform our earth to be, and our people to be just that much better? I mean, why are we doing what we do in the first place? It's a big responsibility. So yes, it's transformational, and you can do that in 15 seconds. You can do that in a 10-second. You can do that. Think of all the images out there that people just put 1.5 billion likes on because it's such a heart-wrenching moment of peace or goodness or being kind.
Hope, right? There's hope.
Hope. Yeah. And so you can do that quickly, and you can do that in a long form. And really, when you think of it, a long form is made up by these little tiny moments. And then you just weave those into a story narrative. And that's where I can help. How do we weave that into a story narrative? And when I make that arch, I'm making a heart, actually. I'm not making a circle. We start in the center where we are, and we move it around, and we bring it back to an audience. And we point to the audience. And then they see that. And now they become a part of that circle, that heart, that embrace that your organization is doing out there.
So we're going to teach on that. And then we're going to pause and have a break. Timing yet to be clarified. But we're going to have a break, and then we're going to do more for folks who want to do more. So we recognize people are at different stages, and some people want the framework. So we'll give you the framework, the rationale, and all of that, and how to think through it. And yes, there will be handouts for folks who love handouts. I think about it like I think about a lot of things now through the Enneagram lens. I'm going, okay, there's other folks who are going, I don't need no stinking handout. Just tell me, I'm going to get it. And there's other people, well, I need to study this. I want to write it down. Well, we've got y'all covered. And we'll have that. But so we're going to do the educational and example part first, but then we're going to come back and do a deeper dive for folks who want to go on and actually bring up some ideas and have you do some real-time Q&A or hot seat work, depending on who's in the room. We'll get some information ahead of time from folks. What do you see that being like? How do you work with people like that?
That is really getting to know who they are. And that'll have come from the other session. But then it's going to be deeper dive into where they're at, because as you said, everyone has different levels of storytelling and ability and what they have already going on. Some folks will have never thought about any of it. Maybe other folks will be like, oh man, we have this thing that's like 50 years in the making and grow. All that's great stuff. But we're going to take it to a level of where are you at today? What is the message you need to get out right now? And what's an efficient way to get that message out there? Video definitely could be a part of that puzzle. But it could be another format. And we will dissect what that is and figure it out. And there may be people that are like, oh man, I just have like these 3 thoughts. I can't connect them and that's where I'd like to step in as a filmmaker, as a director, as a storyteller. Take that and reflect that back in ways that may just have been the key you needed to open that door. And that's the deeper dive, is actually taking you as where you're really at personally right now with your organization and your message, and then actually helping you develop that into something more than you came in the room with.
Well, sometimes it's just that little bit of fog that needs to be lifted. So like I'm speaking about me personally when I say we. I know there's people who can relate to this, but I will overthink something. It's like I'll write it out, I'll get it ready, then I'll overthink it. But I've so overthought it that I've made it more difficult than it ever needed to be. It's like, okay, I've got to do all this stuff. When in reality, no, I need to do maybe 2 of those things and I'm done, right? And then get someone else to help on the other side of it. So, but that'll be great, because I know when I sit in on those types of sessions, even if I never speak, there are questions I wished I would have thought to ask, right? Someone else is asking, I'm going, I totally get it. Okay, that'll work for us, in this situation, but not that situation.
And if I can say, part of my motivation in this is that I want to help people. I want to give people a stage and a place to tell their message from, and help them find their voice, right? Their voice today, and help them to connect with an audience today. And so part of this journey is really going to be to help folks get to that place, but also to encouragement is definitely a part of it. Teaching is definitely a part of it. But thinking like a filmmaker or a storyteller seeing the world through a lens of that is not a lens focused on one thing and you don't see anything else, but more of a lens of how do I capture this moment, or how do I connect these moments I do have into something that will do more or tell more. How many organizations I've seen and worked with that have 1,000 billion snap photographs of something, but they don't do anything with it except throw it in a giant gallery. So wouldn't it be nice to tell a story? And I'm not talking about just slideshow stories, although those are fine too. It depends on what your audience is, this format you're going for. But you can bring those snapshots to life. And that's something that we'd like to do, is help you define in your mind's eye these snapshots that you want to bring to life.
Well, and what about the mental snapshots? So like, for instance, say I didn't have a picture, but I had a mental recollection of something that was so moving to me, maybe about someone our organization helped, a client that just had a huge breakthrough. And, some of that stuff I'm not going to be specific about, obviously, but those are powerful stories of transformation, right? So can you work with that kind of stuff too, where there's not a physical image per se, but it's more of a metaphorical or a transformational thing?
Yep, because you want to capture the feeling.
Okay.
You will capture the feeling of what that moment felt like or sounded like, or how it transformed you, or you watching it, or the audience around it, and then translate that into something that can actually then be told through the media arts of some way. So that will be the thing. You could always say, oh, in my mind's eye, I remember this time 5 years ago where this happened and this person said this thing, and this person's life absolutely changed. And well, those things play out all the time. So it's going to be able to take that moment in time and translate the texture and feeling of that moment into a story that you're going to be able to tell to an audience that's going to resonate and hit them like it hit you. You're knocking on doors of people that either are already aligned with who you are and know who you are and love you, or you're knocking on doors that have no idea who you are and are friendly to your message, but still don't know. And then you're knocking on people that have no idea who you are and never even heard of you, right? So you have to find the common denominator of the story, the narrative of the piece of, and part of that is finding your heart, finding your voice, and then translating that into a medium that those people can watch, see, understand, and appreciate. And just be real. Just be genuine real with who you are and why you do it. How many times have you sat with someone and they're across the table from you like we are right now? This is a very informal conversation between Sarah and I. This is really so relaxed. But
this wasn't planned or scripted at all. We were actually
all.
supposed to be doing a business meeting, and then we started talking about all this stuff and thought, this is really interesting.
And I'm wearing a baseball hat, I'm wearing a t-shirt, I'm in the middle of editing a project, so I'm very much in edit mode, so I'm very much relaxed about it, but what I'm saying is, though, you can sit across from someone though and have a real genuine conversation. You don't only come away with that conversation learning something, but you come away with that conversation being shared with another human being about something. You take that with you. And we want to give people things when they watch your story. You want to give them something to take home with them. And right here, you want to settle it right here. That's, again, heart-centered, but it's really about your heart and how you translate your heart.
Well, and being able to touch that in a way and share it in a way that feels authentic.
Yeah.
And like you said, you could write us all a script. That would not be great, I'm saying.
And you could just read it. I mean, the best scripts I've written are outlines.
Yeah.
And people need to hit 3 or 4 different points. And that's something else you'll learn in this too, obviously, is, how to tell your message in the public setting. Not everybody's a public speaker. And, I'm not like a professional speechwriter, but I've done a lot of speeches for people, and a lot of it is finding these anchor points in your conversation. And if you know those anchor points because your hearts are aligned to your story, you're going to hit those points and you're going to be able to tell somebody something, and it's going to be from you. If it's from you, it's a gift. If it's not from you, it's just a thing. Your nonprofit is a gift. Let's make that a gift.
Yeah. I love that. That's a great metaphor. That is true.
Yeah.
So that we will have an extra and that's a whole 90-minute session. And depending upon how many people actually sign up for that section, it could be a tiny group. It could be a little bit bigger group. And then we know that there will be a few organizations who are just, because I know the personalities are going to say, that's not going to be enough for us. We want one more follow-up afterwards. So Ken and I have decided we're going to cap it at 30 organizations because that's a tremendous amount of organizations. But whether it's immediate or within the next 10 weeks or so, we'll do a 1 hour one-on-one with you and your organization so you can bring back your concept. Maybe you've even produced something, right? And you said, just give it a look over, help us think through it. We've got these specific questions, whatever. We're not going to prescribe what that is yet because we don't know who you are yet. But you'll be bringing the strategic plus the video, the vision, and what are you trying to accomplish piece there. So that was our vision to help nonprofits get ready for the year end. And honestly, in my mind, once you get that ball rolling, you get the momentum going, you're going, okay, now we want to tell this story, but we know the framework. We've done it. We're off of waiting till we have more time, waiting till we have more information. We're done waiting, we're doing. And we can do it imperfectly because we're people.
Exactly right. And that what you're saying is for that, especially that last session of things, it's almost like you got us in your office. We're in the corner office. You can just come and knock on the door, and we're already thinking about how to tell the story, because I do it all the time. I mean, that's just my life. My career has been that way. So I'm already thinking about how to tell your story, and I haven't even met you yet. But I need to fill in all the narrative pieces. Setup, turn, transformation, character, the avatars, the motivations, the settings. All these things are like recipes in a giant, amazing soup, and we're going to put these things together to make this delectable narrative. And so that's part of this journey, is figuring out the ingredients that go into your amazing soup.
So Ken, I just had a thought. I wonder how much of our little impromptu video here was part of both of us avoiding other stuff we've got to get done today also, right? Because I'm looking at my list going, oh yeah, I need to do that and that. It's all good stuff, but I thought, well, this will be such a fun workshop. Let's talk about the workshop first. So anyway, anything else you want to share?
Just that, again, if I can just say, we all know this, and this is from my heart, the world's hurting. They need you. The work you do makes a difference. I've seen it through the lens, and I've experienced it as a person receiving services. And don't give up. No matter what your story is, no matter how you're going to pursue this, whether you join us for this or not, just keep doing the work you're doing, because, oh my goodness, the world needs it.
And take care of each other.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
All right. Hey, cool. Thanks, Ken.
Absolutely. Always a pleasure.
You've been listening to the No Labels, No Limits podcast with best-selling author, change agent, and strategic vision coach, Sarah Box. You can grab the show notes and find out how to work with Sarah at sarahbox.com/No Labels, No Limits podcast. We'd love this podcast to reach as many people as possible. So please remember to rate, leave a 5-star review, and share the podcast with someone you think would get value from this conversation. Until next time, keep taking those daily action steps to align your purpose to your principles and achieve your goals in business and life.